So why do brands use rigid boxes? Well, in the previous episode, we talked about what rigid boxes are. So if you haven't seen that or don't have a clue what I'm talking about, you might want to go see that first. But rigid boxes are essentially the premium box type of the three different types of box packaging. And this is for retail boxes. So it's not really for shipping boxes. It's not really shipping containers or anything like that. These are paper-based hard boxes that brands, high-end brands or premium brands use to package their goods. So that's what we'll be talking about today in this episode. So stick along and let's talk packaging. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sarah. Hello. I run a small business with me and my family, and we've started a blog 2008 called howtobuypackaging.com, where I have a lot of data around what people are looking for when it comes to packaging. And we kind of narrowed in on luxury packaging. And so we set up Vici-Pack, which is our trademark, and we do offer luxury high-end folding carton packaging for brands to start off using quality materials. And as they grow, we grow. So why do brands use rigid boxes? Well, based on my experience, the number one reason is to perceive a high perceived value or high ticket item that product is going to convey to their desired customers. And that's pretty much it. That's it. That's all done and dusted. Now, there's a couple of issues with this if you're not prepared to pay the cost of a rigid box, because rigid boxes are readily available. They're in stock. You could probably personalize it right on using your Cricut with a label and make it look super sophisticated, and off you go. But you're making small quantities. When you're making large quantities or you want a very specific rigid box in mind, you need to go custom because they're not readily available right off the shelf. So when you go custom rigid boxes, this is where things start to get pretty difficult right away. When you make a rigid box, there's a lot of processes involved. And when you have a low quantity, anything less than 1,000 units, the setup fees for all of those different processes are spread out amongst very little volume. So the more volume you have, your setup costs remain the same, and it's spread out evenly between more quantities. So if you have less, that's why it costs so much to do custom rigid boxes. So if you have a high-end brand, or your brand is high-end or luxury or even premium, I'd say some premium brands can afford to use rigid boxes. There is a disadvantage when you only need to order a few. What I mean a few? Anything that's less than 1,000 units. If you order 500 units, is it worthwhile? In my opinion, no, I don't think it's worthwhile. Unless your product is above $100 per unit, or let's say that you're selling it for $500 or $1,000, or let's say your product is $10,000 and you want to put it in this beautiful box, then you can afford to spend $100 on just your box, your rigid box alone. That makes perfect sense. So for me, a rule of thumb is the higher end you are, the more reason for you to put more focus on your rigid packaging. Now, how much should you spend on your packaging? So on average, people usually spend, for luxury and premium brands, they usually spend about 20 to 30% of the overall cost to produce a thing on their packaging. If you're not a premium or luxury brand, that percentage is actually much less. It's only like 10% or even less, like 5%. So the cheaper your brand is, or wherever you position yourself amongst your competitors, the less you'll spend on your packaging. That makes perfect sense because you're aiming for a low-cost customer base. But the higher or premium or luxury or quality, the more you are positioning yourself against your competitors, higher end to the medium, then you'll probably be spending about 20%. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're a skincare brand and you're putting your stuff in a Boston Round bottle with a dispenser cap. Okay. So the whole bottle and dispenser might cost you $1. The label might cost you 10 cents. So now you're $1.10. The outer packaging might cost you 75 cents. So now let's just round it out. Let's just say all of that is like $2. Then you need some protective packaging, let's say a shipper box, plus tape and maybe some more marketing material for each unit. So now you're probably at about, you are at $2, maybe now you're at $4, and the whole thing costs you to manufacture your formula and everything in it. That might have cost you $1. So now it costs you maybe $5 to $6 for you to produce your product. So let's say that your total cost is $6 to produce, but you're gonna sell it at $25 per unit. So let's take, what is 20% of $25? Which I took a quick pause there to do the calculation, but it's basically $5. So in our example, did you spend $5 on packaging? No, actually you haven't yet, because you don't count your formulation. That's your formula, that's your ingredients. We're talking specifically just on packaging. So you spent the bottle, you spent the cap, you spent the folding carton or the retail box, you spent the protective packaging, the shipper, and maybe some stickers and stuff like that. That didn't quite equal $5. So theoretically, you could spend a couple more dollars and still sell it at $25. Or if you add a significant amount of more packaging to elevate the experience, then you could now maybe sell it at $30 instead. That way, the perceived value to your customers will be more like, wow, this is some amazing packaging. The whole experience made me feel warm and cozy inside. So what can make a packaging more expensive than what I just said? A rigid box. A rigid box instead of a folding carton and instead of a corrugated shipper could make the experience a lot more luxurious, and in which case you might be able to offer your product at $40 or maybe even at $50 because the packaging looks so good. Other things you can add for elevating your packaging is probably just like an emblem or another special little sticker showing that it's authentic, or maybe you add some ribbon components to it, or maybe some added padding or packaging, maybe customized printed tissues, and you have the whole thing kind of tie in together. And that will be enough of an excuse to add that perceived value. Thoughts? I think going rigid boxes does take a little bit more of an advanced buyer in packaging, so that way you don't get so sticker shock. A lot of the rigid boxes do come from overseas. I'm in the US, in case you haven't recognized from my voice, but there are lots of rigid box manufacturers in the US. Actually, I can probably list 10 different factories. And then there's a lot of factories who have partnerships out in Mexico for the hand labor, because a lot of the stuff does require hand labor. So is it possible for you to get something nationwide? Yes, it is. Is it something for you to get overseas? Yes, it is. Is it cheaper overseas? With the tariffs and everything, that's hard to say at this point. We might be a little bit at par, but also there's the unpredictability of the transit. How quickly can you get it? Is it reliable? Weather conditions, all of that stuff. For me personally, I like to have more control, and you have more control when you can potentially visit that factory in the same country you live in. So those are my final thoughts. If you enjoyed this video or podcast, or if you have any specific questions, please reach out. Check out ViCiPac, and the rest of our YouTube channel is free information, and you can also visit or request a call with me for free for my YouTube viewers. Thanks so much. See you next time.